Hello. So about a week ago, I asked for course feedback on Campus Wire, and I got 30 responses to it. Um, I've spent some time last week going over it. I now want to spend some time actually talking about the course feedback received. I usually do this in lecture. I wouldn't post, for example, to Campus Wire and cover it there and just have you read it. I would actually spend time in lecture and allow questions back and forth with students. Now, this is an environment, this is obviously recorded. It's not set up in a way to easily let you ask me questions in a live fashion. Maybe someday we'll actually have a beautiful live streaming system with large monitors, and I could see your faces or questions projected while I'm, in my little studio recording or remotely teaching. But we don't have that today. So what I'd propose is I'm going to do this feedback. I'm going to go over it. If you do have additional questions or comments, please go to Campus Wire. Make a post. You can be anonymous to the other students. I'll see who you are. But that's even more anonymous than what happens in the classroom when I say, oh, are there any questions? And students have to raise their hand and they go, well, what about this and what about that? And then we can have a discussion. But let's move the discussion over to Campus Wire. That's the best we can really do in this situation. I mean, I could open up a Zoom chat, but I don't know. Go to Campus Wire and tell me, no, actually a Zoom chat would be great and you'd love it. Or if not, don't. I mean, whatever. I'm very open to the feedback. I will listen to it. I won't always accept it, but I'll try to do my best. And as I've posted, usually sensible feedback actually has a large effect on the course. It's obvious to me, some change needs to happen. I'll do my best to make that change happen. So let's talk about what I heard from you. So first of all, for the things to keep in the course and the nice comments, thank you very much. I appreciate it greatly. I'm not going to go over those things, but I do appreciate it. It helps encourage me and keep at it. All right, and keep trying to do my best here. So most of what I'm going to talk about then is all about things people want to change or think should be changed. Now, admittedly, we're at the start of week 8, so there's not too much time for change left now. But change has already happened is I think the thing I want to mention. So I have taken some changes, in particular with regard to the project, and that's affecting people. So the one thing that came across pretty clearly out of these 30 responses were that some people were quite concerned with their client. Okay. Now, I'm not going to lay blame anywhere. I think each client is unique. There are challenges to playing that role. Some students suggested, let's switch up clients. Well, that doesn't really work. The clients actually have provided you their own unique vision for the project. I gave them a general idea of the problem domain when we had talked about it and discussed it. And then the clients were to go and run with what they thought would be useful. And certainly it appears as though there have been mixed results. Now, the blame lies with me. Just as when during a normal offering of 342 and we have a bunch of clients, every single time I've done it, there have been clients that students are like, this is great, I love it, the project's fabulous, I love working with this client. And there are other clients who the students are continually coming to me and complaining about the demands are changing, they're difficult to deal with, Are we going to fail because of their client? And the answer is always, no, you're not going to fail because of the client. We're going to work together and diagnose and figure things out. So, but what I did this time is, one of the things that we're facing is certainly the workload of offering an online course is greater. And I just thought that, and given that, I was able to obtain another TA to join us. And yes, a student said, well, switch up the client, and I did. In this case, I agreed. I think it was better to sort of do a reorganization of the course and swap clients. Again, there's no blame here. I just think that since the students think a change would be useful, let's give it a try. All right. For all we know, it'll still go south on us and not work. But we're going to try to have it work. I'll be meeting with those student teams who we're switching out the client on. And we're going to try to forge a path for the rest of the term to actually work well. In this reorg, no one has lost any hours, time, pay, anything. We're just changing responsibilities up, trying to make things better for you as the students, okay? All right. So, I think one of the simple things to talk about is this notion that students get upset or feel bad about or want change somehow, this notion of strict scheduling. Why can't we have total freedom in this matter? Why do we have to, in particular, why make us hold stand-ups at 10:30? Why expect us to be on time? The course, I've taught it for many years now. In the very first year or two that I taught it, we didn't actually have a 3-hour lab attached to the course. We had a 1.5 hour lab and a 1-hour tutorial. So you'd have 3 hours of lecture, a 1-hour tutorial, and 1.5 hours of lab. And that really wasn't providing the right amount of time to allow students. Well, let me put it this way. It didn't allow the course to be crafted in a way that suited students in the course very well. And so there actually was a change, and now we have the course as it is presently created. It has 3 hours of lectures and 3 hours of lab. So that's just an extra half hour of contact time over what a normal 3-hour lecture, 1-hour tutorial, 1.5 hour lab is. So it's an extra half hour, but it also shifts and makes clear what we're trying to do here, which is the labs. Just to remind you, the labs really are covering that you're running your stand-ups in them. And again, your stand-ups are actually only supposed to be about 15 minutes. You as a team, absolutely, you might have needs for more planning, more work together, and the lab time is available then, which is handy, but the actual stand-ups aren't supposed to be that long. We have you doing sprint planning. Yes, sprint planning runs 2 hours. We started in the lecture period, and you're like, but we still have lectures. And the answer is yes. The idea is, again, this extra hour of lab is using up the time slots that have, say you only did 15 minutes on a Monday and 15 minutes on a Friday for stand-up. Well, that leaves an hour in that week for the extra sprint planning. Okay, so that gets covered there. Then we have our sprint reviews. These are not all held during lab. They are often held outside of lab, but the TA is always there. These are normally about half an hour. All right. And then we have your retrospective. And again, that's probably about, takes about half an hour. All right, so that's about an hour there. Well, in total, those activities are approximately the 3 hours of lab. Now, why the strict scheduling? Well, we would normally have labs at a scheduled time. Okay, but well, we're online. Why do it? One of the things that I found, as I was saying, in the early years, I actually didn't have these labs set up and put in this way. And we just said, students, this is what you're expected to do. Go do it. And one of the things that happened is that we discovered that several teams actually wouldn't hold their sprint reviews with clients, or actually they'd hold like a sprint 2 review after they'd already done sprint 3 planning. And it's like, what's going on? So, or students really wouldn't hold any stand-ups, or students wouldn't hold do retrospective. And so what we found is it's actually necessary to put in checks, so that, because the process is important and you're not going to get the benefits from the process unless you do it. And you won't learn about the benefits of the process or what you actually think is good and bad unless you try it. So if you just jettison the process, you'll never have tried it, never learned. And so what we learned is we actually need to monitor these things, make sure that they actually happen so that the benefits can happen for the education and the learning. This is, I always view it very similar to a situation where a doctor, they need to, as a resident, they need to be observed. They are under observation. They're doing the job, but they need to be observed and given feedback and made sure that things are actually happening and working right. Same things with lots of activities in the world. While you're learning, we have to monitor you and make sure that they happen. But why? You might be saying, that's fine, I get that, but why the start time for the stand-up? One, because we need the TAs to be able to verify that they're happening. All right. So the TAs need to be able to have a time to actually check that they're happening. In the normal in-person environment, we hold them all in CPH 3681, and I walk around the room and I visit the stand-ups and I'm like, oh, I see only 5 people here. There's 6 people in your team. Who's missing? And we take attendance and we know these people are missing. We're able to do that online, but we need you to do that at a certain time. You're like, well, we could do that and we could post our pictures or whatever, and that would all work out great. Except then there is the situation and the problem that one of the things that happens is that we have often a natural tension on teams where we have some team members who say, yes, oh yeah, we're going to have stand up at this time. Oh, everyone in the team agrees. And there's a set of people who show up at that time. There's a set of people then who all show up late. Oh, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Let's get our photo in, or they, blah, blah, blah. Now, part of that's all going to get caught and checked with our peer feedback that we do at the end of the project, which goes largely into your individual project mark. So, someone who's chronically late to all their meetings is going to get bad peer feedback. I'm going to see that, and we're going to know to actually lower their project individual mark. But it also generates a ton of tension whereby students who are showing up on time have to badger and nag and complain to the students who aren't showing up on time. But if, on the other hand, a manager says you must show up at 10:30, well, the students who are showing up at 10:30, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. When the other people don't show up on time, those people know that we're watching. There's going to be consequences. Therefore, it's not their job anymore to nag and badger and say be on time. It relieves a lot of stress from off of the rule followers, okay, or the people who show up time. And I think that's a really important thing. We still leave retrospective scheduling in your hands, but stand-up sprint planning, sprint reviews, we're all in the midst of, just to for those multiple reasons, to make sure that they're happening, but also to relieve pressure in the team so that the team doesn't have to be upset at each other about showing up or not showing up for things. I think that's too stressful. All right. This goes in hand with another big concern, and it is a concern of mine as well. You might not believe it, but I am sincerely concerned. Concerns about workload. What is appropriate? What is not appropriate? This often goes along with comments that this is like a job and it shouldn't be. Which, by the way, I've talked with TAs about this and stuff, and Alexa gave me a good thing. Well, maybe it shouldn't be like a job, but maybe it really is legitimately like a part-time job, you know. So I don't know. That probably doesn't help you in your opinion of that. So let's talk about this for a moment. As I introduced the course, I said it's different. I said it is unique in that it is going to ask for a continual output of labor. So you need to frequently be dealing with it. And we certainly think that frequently dealing with a course and that it always is something to do is certainly mentally a bit more stressful, as opposed to the type of course where work comes out in chunks. Here's an assignment. All right. I know I got that chunkified and I'm going to be able to get it done. And when it's done, I actually take a break from that course. I don't think about it until the next assignment comes out. Now, of course, for some of you, like let's say in MSci 121, I don't know if it was taught this way for you, but frequently there's an assignment every week other than when there's an exam. And so there is a continual stream of work, but it still seems more chunked because you're given an assignment, and then for a lot of students, they ignore it for about 3 days, and then they work on it, and then another assignment comes out. So no, it's different. Having this project and doing the Scrum Agile process means, yeah, you've got a Scrum board, there's always work, you've got these stand-ups, you got to report on our status. Like, when do I get a break? Well, you get a break in between working on it, but do you get a break from there being work? The answer is no, because the truth of the matter is that is the way software and Scrum is designed, is that we're trying to keep a team engaged. We're trying to keep you always moving and working. That's the way the jobs really are. This is actually giving you this simulation of what's actually happening in the workplace on software development teams purposely. Not all of you have already had a co-op doing this. Some of you may never do it. So this is your experience with that. Some students in past have commented on how much it seemed realistic and how much they liked that, and it was really beneficial to them that it was of that nature. So, it goes both ways. But this like a job thing, I don't really think so. I think it might be part of the mental notion of a workload, but it's not really the actual workload. So the actual workload is the amount of time you're spending on the course. We're not going to really change that there's this continual amount of work, and then we're not going to change that we have Monday, Wednesday stand-ups. That's already a lower frequency than I originally tried in the course, which was Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. We found that was too much, but 3 days a week, this seems reasonable. When you've calculated, it ends up, I think it's reasonable. Like, if you meet less than that, you're going to lose the benefit of staying on top and being able to track things and what's happening with your project. So what about this workload? Well, the idea that is that it really should be, and again, I know it's not this, or not this for some people. So 3 hours of lecture, all right, or 150 minutes times 3. I'm sorry, 150 minutes for 50-minute lectures times 3. All right, I would say out of that, then you might have 1 to 2 hours of reading / study. One thing students have commented on is there's too much reading to do. The reading goes along with the lecture material. They cover the same stuff. The reading exists in many cases to allow a student who doesn't understand the material well enough from the lecture to go and dig deeper on the reading. I will not be picky-uni about, there was a chapter in the reading and it said the following, and you should have known that, and that was on the exam. That's not the way I use the reading. The reading is used as, this is the background, the source material. If you want or need to understand the material well enough to read it in another form, here it is. Now, some things, like when we talked about risks, and I had that article about the Optune or whatever that company was that had bias in their algorithm, yes, I gave you a short document to read. The idea was for you to be able to get the full background on that from there. In that sense, that one really was, please just read it so that you actually can understand it a little bit better. But probably the real concepts already all were in the lecture. And that's the way it is for most of the reading, is the lecture covers it. The reading gives you another source, another way to know what's really being talked about, to follow up, to dig deeper, to have a better understanding when the lecture is not sufficient for you to understand it well enough. Is there tons of stuff in the reading that's not in the lecture? Oh, I don't know. But when it comes time for me to write questions for an exam or a test or whatever, it's based upon what I've lectured, but it's based upon a notion that you've obtained a strong understanding of that material, and you might need to do the reading or apply the methods to have a strong understanding. System testing with capybara. It looks okay from the lecture, but until you've tried to write it and do some actual testing with it, you probably don't really know it. So it would be on your, I would have taken that on as some of the tasks doing during the project, and you would be learning that material while working on the project. Same thing goes with your unit testing and other testing. You're really going to get that hands-on. Be taking the advantages to do that work on the project, and you'll be learning it. You might have to return to the reading to understand it better, to be able to implement it. It's all part of the whole. So it's like theory plus practice. But one of the things that's different in this course is that the practice is really on you to generate yourself through the course of the project. So that's both practice with Scrum, practice with the development methods being talked about. There's not a specific homework where you practice that skill. Okay, so this is how life works actually, usually is, wow, I've got this problem, I've got to figure it out. You do some reading, you watch some online lectures, whatever it is, and you apply and you learn and you move on. So this is what we're modeling here. And this is a 3A course. The idea is it does take more maturity on your part, more self-learning, rather than just having it all simply handed to you. You have to take this responsibility for, how am I going to learn this? Well, the project is there really to allow you, to give you a playground to learn this. But so let's say 1 to 2 hours worth of reading or study. You know, we've already covered that there is 3 hours of lab. All right. And then I would say then there should be probably about 5 hours of project time actually spent working. This is not the time you're doing stand-ups. This is not the time. So again, this is your stand-up. This is your plan. This is your review. This is your retrospective. This is the time that you're spending writing code, submitting pull requests, reviewing pull requests, all those sorts of things. About 5 hours on the project. So we're going to get to 12 to 13 hours per week. And that, by the way, is the university standard for courses, is that combined total amount of work with between lecture and all the other stuff that you do should come to about 12 to 13 hours a week for a 0.5 credit course. So that's within the university norms. You might say, but my other courses, I don't have to do that much work. Well, that's good. I'm glad. I'm glad you don't have to do as much work in your other courses. But the idea is not for us to be pushing you in 342 over this limit. That doesn't mean that I don't know that there aren't students who are way exceeding this amount. And that absolutely concerns me. So one of the things I plan to do is I plan to follow up with some questionnaires, some surveys, to try to understand what is driving some students to put in so much time. Because yes, absolutely, you might say there's no way in the world I'm doing about 5 hours a week on this project. That is, again, outside of your stand-up planning, reviews, retrospectives, and things like that. So, all right, so you're spending way more time than that. Where is the time going? What's happening? Is it because the bright side would be maybe you're excited. Maybe this is a really thrilling thing to do and you want to put in lots of time and effort because you're getting actually to learn lots of stuff. For some of you, that might be the case. For some of you, it might be you're in a panic because you don't really know how much you need to do, so you're just doing as much as you can possibly do. That's not as good. Some of you might be very much less than this. That's probably not good either. It's probably your teammates are probably noticing that you're not really working on the project. So what's happening? One thing I want to note is that with the expectations for the project, that Scrum is self-regulating. The amount of work that you do on a sprint comes from your estimations and your velocity. So you guys went into your sprint 1, you came up with a bunch of stuff, and you got done what should have been a reasonable amount of work. Maybe you did too much in sprint 1. Maybe that resulted in an artificially high velocity for you. Well, you would find out that this sprint 2, and then you got less done. And that would then lower your velocity estimation for sprint 3. And it should self-regulate. The idea, one of the reasons Scrum is designed this way is to avoid burnout and as well as to avoid overload situations. So what happens when you don't do Scrum often is that you end up putting off work, but you got firm deadlines. And before you know it, you are working nonstop. The employer is bringing in dinners, trying to get people to put in more hours. You're encouraged to work on the weekends. And what happens is, well, people try that, but then they burn out and they're overloaded, and it's just a disaster. So Scrum is really saying, look, within a sane work week, what can we get done? Now let's always estimate and be able to give good predictions of our work to our employer to go forward with this, so that we can have a software team that produces software over a long period, years and years and years, and they're happy and they're productive, and there's no more gigantic overload periods and managers who are mad that they don't know when things are going to be done, because it all becomes something that becomes, we can estimate and understand what it will take to get work done. So, if you are doing Scrum and you are working at a reasonable pace for the course, it should be self-regulating, and you should be sane and avoiding overload and burnout. I know that's not the case for lots of people. So I'm stuck with a dilemma, which is, well, what's happening? What's going on? So as I said, I'm going to follow up with some questionnaires or some surveys, whatever we want to call them, and try to dig into this a little bit more. So I don't want you to do more than the university's expectation. At the same time, you might find that even this is more than a regular course or more than other courses, but that's not my problem that other courses are easier or have less workload or easier for you, and this course is harder for you. For some students, this course might be something that's very natural to them and they're able to proceed with it very quickly, but another course dealing with, whatever the matter, maybe the mathematics or this or that, is really challenging and hard for them. So there's no easy answer there, except that these are what I think should be happening. I know it's not always happening. When it's out of control, I'd like to better understand what's happening to be able to help the students be in control. And so I will follow up with that. One thing that students could do right now, so if you are saying, I'm working tons, do the following for me. Keep a time log. All right? All you need to do is you need to say, what and when you did it, and how long it was, basically. So this is basically the date. This is the duration, what, and you make a spreadsheet with these sorts of things. I was coding this. It was on Tuesday, March, whatever. And then that was a long 4-hour stretch nonstop. Log it. And then we can have a conversation, or you can have a conversation with me to be like, look, this is how much time I'm putting in on this course. Go ahead. Tell me how long you're actually spending watching the lectures. You can watch them faster, speed them up. Tell me how much time you're spending reading and studying. If you want to keep track of your lab time, absolutely keep track of your lab time. Log it all. Make a record, make a case as to what is happening with this, and let's talk about it. Let's share it and understand it. Right now, all I have is there's too much. And I don't have the data to understand how is it too much, what is actually happening. So I need the data, but the data rests with you. So if you want to help solve this problem, besides answering my questionnaires, maybe keep a time log and share your time log with me. Okay? That's what I would do if I was an employee and things were out of control. I'd keep track of my time, share it with my manager, and we'd have a discussion about what's actually happening and to recalibrate expectations. All right. So I know this is taking a long time. I do assume that only the most interested students will be listening. Thank you for your attention. All right. So, what else was there? So we're going to work to solve that workload problem. All right, let's move on. There is feedback to get rid of the quizzes. And there's feedback to keep the quizzes. They're great. They're really useful. Honestly, goes both ways. Research during this pandemic with online courses has very solidly shown that if courses do not have some sort of grade-based incentive for activities such as watching lectures, other sorts of things that students are supposed to be doing, students go into a feedback spiral where they disengage, and then everything starts to be less and less useful for them because they've not engaged with the material, and it's problematic. And why are they not engaging? Because there's not a requirement to do something to get points, to get something on their grade. So this disconnect of, well, I know I need to watch the lecture and study because eventually there's going to be an exam, seems very sensible. Like everyone should understand that and get that and do that. But when faced with the boredom of it, the tedium of sitting in your chair, of watching someone like me, on and on and on, students, I can't take it, whatever. I mean, I've tried to watch online lectures and they tire me. I mean, I sit there doing skip 5 seconds, skip 5 seconds endlessly. Anyways, so I know how hard it is. So what we need is some mechanism to help you stay in touch. It needs to be enough that it helps you do this, but not so much that it's overburdensome. That's the idea of keeping the quizzes. And I'll keep the quizzes, but we're not going to have one. We didn't have one on last Friday because I know you've got this test coming up. I wanted to give a little breather. You're going to get tested on that material anyway at the test, so why give you a quiz right now? You've got that motivation coming up real soon to watch the last week's lectures. So that's pretty simple there. So I will continue them. I'll try to keep them reasonable in size and scope for you, though. If you were to think of some other way to keep you engaged with that sort of material, let me know, and I could replace the quizzes with it. I'm certainly open for options for that. All right. I'll just let you insight. So with the lectures on YouTube, oh yeah, YouTube, I don't know if you've ever had a channel or whatever, it's the first time for me. Oh yeah, it gives you all sorts of analytics about where people watch your lectures, how many people are watching them, and this and that. Oh yeah, I can see absolutely students like spend more time over the sections that are related to quiz questions. You're human. Anyway, all right. I assume that this lecture will get very little viewing. All right. But I am doing it because that's what I would normally do in person. All right. So, I was going to interlude and say that's actually one of the things that I found important here is try to have a little bit more simulation of reality with regard to these online courses. A little bit more of the same things that we do in person and do them here. It makes sense. So one of the things were also this accusation of vague instructions or expectations for things. And we want rubrics, rubrics, rubrics. Well, there is a folder in the content section of Learn for the sprint, which is the only thing we're doing right now, that's filled to the gills with what we expect out of sprint planning, what we expect out of sprint reviews, what do we expect for your development work, what do we, retrospective, and so on. I have to say just simply, like, there's how are we going to evaluate your project? There's how are we going to evaluate your individual contribution to the project? There's a lot of documents there. There's rubrics there too for a lot of things. What I'm only left with here is to basically say, is to please read these expectation documents in Learn. They're in the content for sprints. And if you have questions about them, ask them on Campus Wire and we'll clarify it, okay? This is what students have been doing. Like, oh, I don't understand what you mean about testing here. Well, I'll clarify it for you, okay? Very happy to clarify things. But you gotta actually look at them rather than just tell me they don't exist, okay? All right. Provide solutions for the quizzes. I'm very happy to go over any questions anyone wants to go over. I'm happy to meet with you, schedule an appointment. If you want to, you could ask a question on Campus Wire, whatever works. We can have it back and forth. I have no problem with that. Don't just simply say, what's the solution? Okay? I'm happy to talk to you about it though and help you understand the problem. All right. One of the things I want to mention, so yeah, there's feedback on, these lectures. Oh my goodness gracious. Why are they so slow? That's the way I lecture. In 245, which you all took with me, I tried to be innovative. I tried to say, you know what? There's a lot of reading, and there's also then would be lots of lectures. Since you're probably going to have to do the reading anyways, I said, why don't I get rid of the lectures and you just do the reading? We'll do the whole perusal thing, and based upon it, and you can ask questions of me. Won't we have this nice learning environment where you get to modulate and regulate your time without wasting your time listening to me talk? Well, the feedback was overwhelming. The feedback accused me of not teaching the course because I didn't lecture, which I found very interesting because people don't accuse people of not teaching courses because they don't write textbooks. I don't know. Anyways, nevertheless, I heard you. And anyways, on 342, I actually feel that I have an order for the material and a presentation and content that is not currently able to be perfectly pulled out of a textbook and given to you. There are chapters in the engineering software as a solution or whatever textbook that correspond largely to a lot of what we're covering this term, but I don't agree with some of the development of that. Having you read it would not sync up properly with the course. There's a lot there that actually isn't right in the way that it's ordered for the way that I teach 342, and so the lectures actually work better. And so fine, I'm very happy to do the lectures in 342. When I do 245 in the summer, I'm going to do lectures again because I can't stand to be accused of not teaching because simply I didn't stand in front of a camera and chat or talk. So definitely going to keep doing them. You're welcome to speed them up. Should I do them live with the live streaming? The problem is, again, I don't have any good mechanism to see feedback or get feedback. When I did try to have Q&A sessions in 245 to have a live interaction with students, I regularly had at most about one person show up for them. So it didn't seem reasonable to actually do those given that no one showed up for them. Almost no one. My apologies to those that did, but almost no one did. So those didn't seem to work. I could certainly live stream these, but again, I think the problem would be that people still wouldn't show up. Now, there is a point about lectures that some people have, which is they would like them all at the start of the week. Well, that's asking a requirement that's not usually asked of me during a normal term, which is to produce lectures and distribute them Monday, Wednesday, Friday to you. I can't actually always guarantee you and give you that. I'm sorry. That, you might, well, just work a week in advance. And you'd have 1 week. You could spread them out in the prior week, but then I'll release them on Monday. True, but it's just not working for me to do that. My apologies. So, during a normal term, I wake up early, I get into work, I prep, and if whatever I need to do, spend several hours to prep a lecture, and then boom, oh, it's 9:28. I walk down the hall and I give the lecture in class. I can do that here. Unfortunately, I'm recording them, so there's going to be a delay between when I start and when I end and when I post and blah, blah, blah. So that's not cool. What I will strive to do, and I'm unfortunately not doing it already, but I will strive, I will aim harder, I will work harder to post and be available by 9:30 a.m. so that you can actually have on your schedule that you would be in lecture and you would actually be able to start watching that at 9:30. Now, of course, when we have sprint planning on Wednesdays, that doesn't really work. You might be wondering, well, how in the world during a normal term do you handle that with the lectures being eaten up? Often what happens has been lecturing longer on Mondays and Fridays, and shifting, for example, the stand-ups to compensate for that. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Anyways, maybe, so online is giving me some more flexibility. I hear you. So at least I'll aim to get these out so that you know exactly when they should be there and available to watch rather than having to check and follow up. I apologize. But I can't really do a dump of them all at the beginning of the week. Again, I'll tell you part of the reason is what I have is I have a backlog of material that I want to cover that's prioritized. That backlog actually changes based upon what's seeming to happen in the course or what I've given and lectured so far, and so it changes. And so I actually am basically giving you a just-in-time delivery of lecture content. It's not sketched out for the entire term. I have a huge amount that I want to talk about, but I'm trying to give you what's highest priority based upon what's fitting in the amount of time. It's sort of an agile Scrum approach to lecturing. Yeah. Your lectures are new this year. Sure, some of them are topics or things that I've talked about in prior year, but a huge amount of the material is all brand new this year, or redone in ways that are special for you in your term and what we're working on. So I don't have them sitting around. I'm making them all fresh. I already talked about required readings. I already talked that different courses are different. I already talked about time. Some students want some sort of notes or summary notes for the lectures. That's what a student's responsibility is. You are to watch the lecture and take notes. Everyone wanted lectures. You have lectures now. So take the notes. If you don't like taking your own notes, form a collaborative group and share the responsibility to, if you had 3 people, you could share note-taking responsibilities across, 1 week of lectures pretty easily. You could even, as a whole class, collaboratively share notes. Most students have done this in the past. I don't have notes that are reasonable to share with you. They're a mess. So that's not going to work. Some people, give us a calendar feed for all the schedules and stuff. You do have a course schedule. We do have announcements of some things in Learn, in Campus Wire. It is your responsibility to keep track of all of that and to note it. So we make the material available, but you do have some responsibility to be in charge of organizing it, much as you have to organize all sorts of other things in your life regarding when things are due, what are deadlines, and so forth and so on. This course is not different in that regard. Now, the one thing I want to mention that may not have come up here is so some students say, "Oh, it's great to be." They did like being available during sprint planning. I want to stress that I'm actually much more available than just during sprint planning. If a team wants to talk to me and wants to get advice, I'm only an appointment away. Okay, so email me and say, "Would like to chat. Tell me what you want to chat about how long you think it might take. When are you available to meet?" Okay, so I'm happy to meet with teams. Very happy, by the way. I'm isolated and all alone here, just like you, so any contact is actually nice. I'm happy to meet with teams, but that's not, it's not because of social interaction that I want to meet with you. It's because I actually enjoy meeting and talking about software with you. So all you have to do is email basically an agenda, what you think the time, or the agenda or topic or whatever you want to talk about. What sort of time is needed, do you think, to talk about it? Probably half hour. And when are you available? Give me some time slots so that I can find in my calendar something that's available, and then I'll say, yeah, we can meet. We'll do it at this time. Okay? So if you want to meet, let me know. We can meet. That's at the team level. It can be at the individual level as well. Also, office hours basically are by appointment. And so you got to set up the appointment to get it. I will talk to you in person over Zoom or Teams or whatever is going to work best for us. But that has to be something you ask for rather than something that I force upon you. All right. This went way too long, but this is often what happens when I go over feedback. There's a lot to say. I do appreciate your feedback a lot. There have been changes already to the course based upon it. I hope that makes things better. I hope some of this also helps you understand things better about why we do things the way we do them in the course. With regard to the workload especially, though, we're going to keep working on trying to figure out what's going on there. You can play a part if you keep a time log and share it with me. And yeah, still something I need to work on is being able to get your lectures out at least by 9:30 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so that you know exactly when they're showing up. Right now, all you know is they're going to show up sometime on Monday-ish and sometime Wednesday-ish and Friday-ish, and that's not sufficient for your planning, and I apologize. All right, thank you again for your feedback.